So last night during Trump's big flop of an address, someone very important was missing. A trusted person in Trump's circle who is usually present for all of his speeches. But it's easy to miss because it's sort of the nature of his job to go unnoticed. And I'm talking, of course, about Trump's personal teleprompter operator, a guy named Gabriel Perez, who Trump reportedly found in 2016 after someone on his campaign Googled the word teleprompters. I'm really not kidding on that. Now, the reason why Mr. Perez was not the one scrolling through Trump's scripted remarks is because he is currently under investigation for, get this, allegedly making more than $100,000 placing bets on the Kelce prediction market, specifically on what Trump would say in his speeches. Speeches that a teleprompter operator would most certainly have early access to. Now, we try our best on the show to track and call out the corruption in Trump's orbit, but I gotta say, we didn't have the White House teleprompter guy allegedly cashing in this way on our list of people to just pay close attention to. Now, who this shouldn't surprise, however, is Donald Trump himself, because one of his latest business ventures is profiting off of insider information to new heights. This was the headline in the Financial Times today. Trump media pitched a $100,000 monthly fee for fast feed of president's posts. Donald Trump's social media company has reportedly discussed charging traders and investors a whopping $100,000 a month for faster access to posts from top Truth Social accounts, including those from Trump. The very posts where he announces his latest decisions on everything from the Iran war to global trade to how he's feeling about any particular issue. Information that Trump media describes as having the ability to move financial markets. And if you're thinking, how the hell is this legal? How can the president sell priority access to decisions so consequential to the American people and the world? Well, I'm not even the slightest bit sure. But I do have the perfect person to ask. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman and constitutional scholar Jamie Raskin. Okay, Congressman, I just want to start with this Financial Times reporting. I mean, Donald Trump holds a majority stake in Trump Media, which means he personally could profit from selling this special access, which we know doesn't bother him a bit. I should add, we're talking about milliseconds here, but this feels like a huge deal in the financial world. Is this legal? How? What can be done about it?
Well, it's obviously misuse of government resources, and it is against the law also to run a business from government property, government offices, and that's exactly what he's doing. The whole trade of the Trump administration is insider trading. That's what their business is. The whole government under them is a massive profit-making enterprise, and what they trade on is their power and their insider knowledge. And now they want to formalize that by saying if you give them I can't remember what the numbers were. Was it $100,000 a month?
Yep.
Then you would get the presidential word first, so you can make the same early inside stock investments that the president's going to make in order to exploit his soon-to-come statements about those companies and about how they're such a great investment. And indeed, he'll be channeling government resources towards them, too. I mean, that is the name of the game. They've converted the whole government into a for-profit enterprise. And it shows they're not interested in waking up every day and saying, how are we going to health care to the American people, or how are we going to solve the climate catastrophe that is bearing down on us so we're breathing unbreathable air? No, they're looking at more ways that they can rip off the public.
That seems to be their top priority on their everyday to-do list. Let's turn to the speech last night, because I haven't talked to you about this yet. I mean, clearly, we know his goal is to sow doubt in our election systems. And, well, the overall response was an eye roll. Unsurprisingly, it did gin up parts of his base who already believe his election lies and who now claim the speech provides a basis for Trump to enact the Insurrection Act. Well, what's your overall reaction to the speech? And is that something that we should all be preparing for and thinking about?
I mean, the people who believe that nonsense, or who are prepared to believe that nonsense, are a set, finite minority of the American people. So it's like a religious cult leader who decides to go on national TV to spin out some wild conspiracy theories or theological fantasies, and nobody's buying it, and everybody rolls their eyes, and the people who want to hear it, you know, they've already gotten it. So it was complete Dolesville for America last night. It was an especially bad speech. The president has done much better work than this, but this really hits a rock bottom, I would say. And I'm hearing some funny submissions for names for this speech, including the Pettysburg Address, and some people are saying, I have a scheme. You know, I'm thinking more he's taken Roosevelt's first inaugural address, where he said we have nothing to fear but fear itself, and just turning into we have nothing but fear. And that's all he's spreading here, but it's boring at this time. We know exactly what he's up to, and we are mobilized all over the country at every level of government to counter their attempts to steal the election or derail the election.
We also know he either didn't read or didn't understand the documents that he was releasing, that he announced he was releasing, because as I just did an overview of at the top of the show, a lot of them contradicted things that he actually said in the speech. And I want to ask you about some of that, because you were a ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee during the Russia investigation. I'm sure you saw that one of the documents that Trump declassified and released yesterday as part of his so-called smoking gun for Chinese meddling actually showed that in 2020 it was Russia who tried the most to penetrate American election systems, the most in an effort to defeat Joe Biden. What'd you make of that?
Well, of course, and remember back in 2016, Russia had conducted not just an influence campaign, which means the propaganda and disinformation in an attempt to influence the public, but also an actual interference campaign by, breaking into the DNC's emails and Hillary Clinton's emails, and it was far more aggressive. In 2020, they seemed to stick to the influence campaign, and that was well documented. They were the major player, and it was all on Donald Trump's behalf. They were out there for him because of Donald Trump's well-known love and subservience to Vladimir Putin and the Russian position on everything from NATO to Ukraine to you name it. So Russia was on his side. The intelligence community assessment that was released in March of 2021 also showed that in addition to Russia, Iran was out there, not on Joe Biden's behalf, but just against Trump, saying negative stuff about Trump. That's in there too. But there was a conclusive finding by the intelligence community that neither Russia nor Iran nor China or anybody else actually got to the point of technical interference, meaning interfering with people's ability to vote or the counting of ballots or the processing of ballots or the release of results. It just didn't happen. And Donald Trump had nothing to alter that conclusion last night.